The opinions made in this video do not necessarily coincide with that of Imaginary Goddess, or anyone else for that matter. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey guys, this is Ben Wheeler, the Mercenary King, here with the first new episodes of State of Play for the Stride Meta. Season 2, Episode 1, The Revengeing. So, by the time this is posted, either the pre-release or the full set for GBO1 will be released, and some of these cards will be absolutely forgotten. But hey, that's alright, this is Vanguard. It's moving pretty fast. We're catching up to the Japanese meta, and you know how it is. You know how it is. So basically what I'm going to do here is go over both some decks and some cards that you can do with the Stride trial decks. Now, honestly, I'm not very happy with the Neo Nectar 2 trial decks combined decks, which is what you can do for both Royal Paladins and Gear Chronicle. The second thing will be Gear Chronicle, by the way, if you want to skip ahead to 15-20 minutes or so. And then Royal Paladin will be at the end, a third of the video. Partly because, unlike, say, Royal Paladins, which sort of depend on the fact that you have units that can hit for things, Neo Nectar doesn't really have that. Neo Nectar sort of does things half-heartedly with this trial deck, and so it's got the 12k attacker that they have, and they have the 10k intercept and whatnot. Excuse me. They have, you know, a 10k. They have. This is an interesting card. I'll talk about it later. You know, they have all these interesting cards, but at the same time, they're not really Neo Nectar. When GBO2 comes out, we'll have some really interesting Neo Nectar stuff. But for now, you will see a deck profile. I'm trying to get a thing done with Kahilith to do a duo, really state of play here. But until that day, you know, if it doesn't come to anything, I'll just do it. But as you can see, these are part of my Neo Nectar deck. I actually combined some of the old stuff from set 14 with Ramunculus and a few others to create sort of a nice medley that does what it needs to do and really keeps up a field presence like nothing else. You'll actually see it fight against Makuto sometime, but where it sort of got its ass kicked but also kicked ass, I don't know. It takes a while to set up. So let's talk about Neo Nectars. The starter is Counterblast 1, put this unit into the soul, choose one of your grade 2 or less rear guards, search for a copy, and call it your rear guard, shuffle the deck. It's a break even, sure. I just realized I don't have the perfect shield, new perfect shield here. So I'll just show you best perfect shield when it comes to it. I mean, it's a copy, but at the same time, you have to compare it to this, which summons out any grade 2 card you want, and against this, which summons out a grade 3 card and puts it into the hand, meaning that you'll stride again for Counterblast 1. Wow! And then there's this little girl. I'm so sorry. But the best starter for Neo Nectar right now is still Maiden of Physalis, which is top 5 for a grade 1 when it boosts. Comes out tapped. This is, I guess this suits better the words. I guess it suits better what they're trying to do with it, but it doesn't provide as strong an effect as it should be. Because what if you're facing you know, Dragonic Overlord, the end deck, or not Dragonic Overlord, the end deck, the Great deck, or Dox, or, you know, any of the other ones that kill a lot of things, she will not be as useful as she should be. Though then again, because you will lose a booster to gain, you know, maybe another booster, maybe another attacker, but nothing really has the on-call need. I don't like paying the counterblast. that comes down to it. I don't like the fact that she goes into the soul for a counterblast. There are other cards in these decks that do use counterblasts, and you can start running out. I don't even know what I was saying earlier. She's also a G-Break 1, whereas Maiden of Physalis allows for early rush. Not rush as in it comes out tapped, but early rush in the sense that grade 2 you already have another booster. That probably does something on hit, or it, is like a Musketeer Merca, which gains +3k every, if you shuffle the deck this turn. So my triggers, 4 crits, not a bad art, better than some, but I'm running stands. 4 draw, Hefo Turnip, fantastic art, not as good as the stuff that's out there. Fairy Light Dragon, then actually she suits me more like Mega Colony personally, but And then finally we have Maiden of Daybreak. What Bushiroad is doing right now is making stands more worthwhile by giving them very powerful abilities. There's already a Neo-Nectar stand that goes into the soul for +3k. This one is G-Break 1. By the way, G-Break is on Vanguard Circle or G-Zone. Put this unit to the top of the deck and shuffle. I think I actually soul charged it a couple times. Once. If you do, choose one of your units. By the way, this will save you from being decked out. Choose 2 of you, which is a thing. 2 of your units and with the same card name +5k. In Neo-Nectar, what you want to do is you want to run 4 grade 3 ones. Perfect Shield or Quintet Wall if you go that way in a non-Legion deck. Saying it's stupid. Then 4 something and then 4 something. Preferably one of them is about power, or both of them is about power, but one of them should be about power and one of them should be about summoning things out. This gives power and gives you the bonuses you need to really beat down your opponent when it's necessary, because plus I've given cards +10k, and it is hilarious when you get a 17k booster against a person who's stridden several times, sure, but at the same time doesn't have many rear guards, so you can like attack the rear guard, or you can force those cards out of your hand. I run stands, so giving like my front row +10k, +5k really does help a lot. So all of a sudden I run Halo Pineapples, and all of a sudden they're 16k attackers. That's beautiful. That's just beautiful by themselves. In a stand deck, that really works out. But really, these triggers are not as good as I want them to be. Not as good as I want to. Oh wait, there's another stand in here somewhere. Hold on. But rather in the sense that there could be more. They could have really done something with the art. Because this is sort of Neo-Nectar's Grand Revival, it was a big thing back in the day. And, it sort of languished, even with the stuff they gave it in set 14, which was fantastic. It just hasn't really... This guy, 4 stands. Technically, you could run 8 stands in your Neo-Nectar deck from the trial decks, which is actually more useful to you because of the Vanguard ability, which gives power. What was I saying? I'm out of practice. It's only been like 3 weeks and I'm out of practice. What with the Stride and what with this character? Stands work best, I've found so far. But also there's also a need for draw. I've tried running 4 crit, 8 draw, 8 stand, and it's not really sparked for me. I'm going to try it again eventually, but for now I'm just running draws with it. And it really does work because the draws sort of cover some card advantage that you would otherwise be missing in this deck. Because quite frankly, as you'll see with the grade 2s, there's a lot of wasted space that need to be filled with cards outside of the Neo-Nectar stuff. But here's the thing. there's still a lot of really great cards out there. To still make it worthwhile to buy these trial decks. I'm not trying to sell you on the trial decks. I'm just trying to say that the trial decks in and of themselves cannot make a deck. And that's not a bad thing. If the trial decks in and of themselves could make a deck, you know, and that's it, you know, it's like, why buy anything else? Why spend money on this game? Why, you know, build a good Neo-Nectar deck? Well, you know, there's a lot of very interesting combinations out there, and just not, I don't really like Musketeers, so I don't run them. You know, instead I run other things. My goodness. I'm making no sense. This is dreadful. I'm making less sense than usual. Buy 2 trial decks, make your Neo-Nectars powerful. What you do with the grade 3s and whatnot is sort of up to you. Ramunculus is pretty good, but she needs a combination. I'm comboing up her with the reverse right now, and that seems to be working. But I feel that the stuff coming out later will be better. Okay. Because of all the summoning, which works with the triggers. There we go, full circle, which needs some help from the starter, which I don't feel has helped with this chick as she is with Maiden of Physalis. Okay. What I'm saying is that combo this deck up with stuff that's already out. There we go. 10k booster when you G-Break 1. This one is a very interesting card. All 3 trial decks have it. When this unit is attacked, plus 5k. It's a fantastic early defense, but it doesn't really justify its space in the deck. Because that's all it does. It's, you know, when this unit is attacked, protects it from like just single card columns, but it doesn't protect it from retire. It doesn't do really anything else for it, and it doesn't gain it when it attacks. And I wish it did. However, if you don't mind the fact that it's a 6k that doesn't do anything but be defensive, and you build a super defensive Neo-Nectar deck, well, that's, you know, that's a choice I can respect. You know, 10k boosters aren't as important as it once was, and this is G-Break 1, so it won't do it before you both have a grade 3. So, I don't really like it. I feel that there's better spots for it, because you can't exactly run for these guys and then expect all the abilities to go off. You know, it's just behind the Vanguard. You really need 10k boosters that are either dependent on ability like Legion or on another effect that's easily gotten from your situation, like the Mega Colony one, which is when everything's tapped on your opponent's side, plus 4k. This is G-Break 1. Which I suppose is kind of free and isn't dependent on many things, but there's better things to put in this deck, though not from the trial deck. Again, mix it in with some other stuff that's already been out there. Best AK art, Budding Maiden Diane. Because I'm still growing, I'm sure that this is some sort of pun in Japanese or whatever, but, you know, Budding Maiden is a reference generally to, you know, girls growing up. Coralberry Squire. This is a 10k when it attacks a Vanguard. When you're at G-Break 1, these cards are useless. There's 10k attackers when they attack a Vanguard, or when it attacks, if your Vanguard is, you know, an archetype plus 3k. This is when this unit attacks a Vanguard, so only a Vanguard. This unit gets plus 3k if it's G-Break 1. This isn't good enough to run. Sure, you can run it within a deck with some things that, you know, give power and whatnot, but it's just not worth it for this guy or any of his clones. I run one in my my Gear Chronicle deck, but that's simply because there's nothing better to run for him. Gear Chronicle being its only thing. But in Neo-Nectar, you have better choices. In fact, running this girl is better than running him. That's how he stands on things. Why is this bad? He's limited to the Vanguard, so if there's no booster, he can only attack the Vanguard at 10k. He's limited to G-break, so he can't give you any early game pressure. Early game pressure can ruin face. And lastly, attacks of Vanguard. It's only plus 3k. If you got Ramunculus out, at G-break 2, maybe he can hit 15k against the Vanguard. But still, that's not a number. In this meta, 10k just doesn't exist. I can't think of a single mainline 10k Vanguard right now that's still being used mainline meta, S-class deck, or whatever you want to say. Excuse me. Yeah, that's the long and short of it. There is also a perfect shield, which is basically a perfect shield. Discard a card, put this on Guardian Circle, can't be hit. I didn't really care for the art, and for some reason I put it in my trade binder, and I don't really feel like interrupting this video to get it. Alright, grade 2s. We have here the 10k Interceptor, 12k Attacker, 10k Defense, whoop, which is great art. And finally, the only interesting thing here is Maiden of Gladiolus. Now, I do run this in my deck. Counterblast 1 when this unit attacks a Vanguard at G-break 1. This unit boosted. Search for a copy of a other rear guard. Same name as the unit. Shuffled on rear guard circle and shuffle the deck. So it copies boosters or attackers. Okay, so I just realized you could copy one of him, like he's in the back row, summon out another guy like this, 17k column for cheap. That's a use. But there's better things that do more. So really, you use her when you're striding to start pulling out a field, especially for boosters. Boosters seem to be the hardest thing in this deck to properly manage. So, you got to be careful all the time. 10k attacker art is fantastic. 12k's, I run Heyo Pineapple because I get a lot of early field with my version of the deck. But if you run a deck that's more modern, this guy, Grace Knight, is worthwhile. Finally, 10k Interceptors work in a defensive level deck, but it's still AK and it won't give you numbers, which are slightly more important. You want numbers over defense. If you have numbers, you can punch through the other guy's defense faster than he can punch through yours. But we're not playing B-Police here, so this is slightly more acceptable. Grade 3s. I'll save Ramunculus for last. Counterblast 1 on attack plus 3k. Then we have Full Bloom Dragon, plus 6k at G-break 1 when it's on the Vanguard circle, and it attacks the Vanguard. So it's 16k by itself. With a 7k booster or a 10k booster, it's somewhere between 23 and 26k, which isn't bad. When this unit is placed on Vanguard circle, you can choose top 5, choose 2 cards, same name as your Vanguard or rear guard among them, call them the separate R shuffle deck. So that's pretty nice. You can, as long as you have a decently complex field, you can summon out copies. Problem is that they already made a card like her that was on hit that was terrible. It was a promo that was the unreversed Maiden of Venus Trap. And this one was, when this unit attacks a Vanguard, counterblast 1, choose top 5, search for 1 card the same name as a Neo Nectar, Vanguard rearguard circle, call it to rearguard shuffle deck. On attack, actually. That's okay, that's a little bit better than I thought. But still, it's on attack, summon 1 for counterblast 1. This is counterblast 2, summon 2, but what if you get 5 triggers at the top? What if you get things that aren't a copy of it, like perfect shields, triggers, grade 3s that you just don't have out there? There's a lot that can go wrong, and if you waste the counterblast 2, that's not coming back in this deck. There's nothing to revive them. Alright, so let's cover Ramunculus. She's actually really good. G-break 2, so in other words, stride twice. Strides. During your turn, if you have a unit with same card name as a unit in your Vanguard or rear guard, this unit gets plus this unit gets plus 5k. Now, if I'm reading it right, and I'm hoping I am, that every card gets 5k if it has a copy of itself Yes, I am reading it right. So in other words, the stands work out. 16K columns, 17K columns by themselves turns into 29Ks, 30Ks, you know, so on and so forth, which is really great numbers. Attack with a column, stand, all of a sudden they're attacking for 39K instead of just 29K again, which is just unblockable for most reasons. Or they'll burn through their hand, leaving them nothing, even things to stride on. Counterblast 1 during your turn when you're stridden. Strode, there we go. Pay the cost, choose a rearguard, summon the same unit as a rearguard, and give it plus 2k, shuffle deck. Also pretty solid, a +1 for striding, which means that the grade 3 you spend from your hand, hopefully just a grade 3, is actually a plus. Not a plus, sorry, a break even rather than a -1. So that turns into the triplet drive into a +1 overall, but a +3 to hand, assuming no triggers. Overall, really great card. I wouldn't be surprised if they're in every Neo-Nectar deck. I don't really remember a grade 3 that does more than this card does for the deck, but I'm looking forward to seeing what it does. I don't really remember much from GBO2 right now. Finally, we have the Stride, Flower, Princess of the Spring, Arborea. Choose, when this unit attack hits a Vanguard, choose one of your rearguard, search a copy, and return it to, put it to rearguard circle, so you get plus 2k until end of turn. Let's say you get a 7k behind a 12k. That's a 19k column, normally. All of a sudden this turns into a 23k column, and all you did was hit with this girl and this, and you got +1, break even, +1 off of the Stride, and then +3 triggers. Drove check. That's pretty good. Strides is a very powerful mechanic. One that is making waves where it is right now. It's making, oh my goodness. It is making waves. It's starting to change things. I lent out my decks and a few other things to some players and sort of helped them along. I gave them each 2 Harmonix Messiahs, and that was all they needed. You get yourself 2 Harmonix Messiahs or 2 Atmoses or whoever is the dealio, daddy cat, and things are going to go all right for you. Harmonix Messiah is the generic Stride, 16k on attack, triplet drive, all clans, all type, nations, Cray Elemental. It should be a 4 of in every deck until the Strides comes out for the individual clan, which will in Fighter Collection, because goodness knows they're not giving Mega Colony the treatment they're giving Neo-Nectar. Yeah, I'm bitter about that, guys. Really bitter. Anyway, here, let's talk about the Gear Chronicle deck. Now, starter is, this is actually a deck made only from the trial decks, because that's all there is out there. But at the same time, it is a working deck. It is a deck that can win you tournaments if you play it right. A lot of people don't know how to play it. It's like Link Joker back in the day. I made a deck out of 4 trial decks. 1, 2, few fingers. Out of 4 trial decks. And then I put 4 Dark Band Dragons and Unicorn, which were the promos at the time. So in other words, I had a full working deck with the Break Ride, and I won tournaments with a 4 trial deck, no perfect shields, stands, and creds, and draws, and heals, you know, and everything put together in the most generic fashion. Then again, we had Mobius Strip Dragon back in the day, which was a free lock if you hit it while it was on Vanguard, which, you know, was nice. It was really nice, a one-of in every Link Joker deck. But this is the same sort of deal. Put 2 trial decks together and it works. There's perfect shields, there's aces, there's fodder for your abilities, that sort of thing. Now, this guy's ability is pretty great. GB1, put this unit into Soul and Counterblast 1, search for a grade 3, reveal it to opponent, put it into hand shuffle deck. So you already have to be grade 3, so he doesn't, like, end ride stucks. But what he does do is give you free Counterblast 1 for fodder for Stride, which is more important for this deck than anything else. The more strides you do with this deck, the more likely you are to win. Now you might say, but Ben, you could do that for every deck. No. It's like Spike Brothers. There's no stride card revealed for it yet. So if you stride over when you should be break riding and legioning, you know, it's a dumb move. But but it's always a smart move to do it with Gear Chronicle, especially when the strides from GBO1 come out. Which this guy is going to keep itself as a starter for Gear Chronicle for quite some time. 4 heals, best heal art in the game, Uluru, or, you know, some of it. It's a Clockwork Girl with a watch. The art is just exquisite. You know, get your hands on a proper copy. The lighting in this room is just terrible. There's only one source and it's very bright. 4 crits, not bad. 4 stands, not bad. 4 draws, again, not bad. There's 2 other draws, I think, but I don't know where they are. This is a better sort of pullout. This is a nice little draw here. Usually draws get like plus 3k when you put it into Soul. You know, which is nice. It's got its uses. Not really much to say about it. Shiny. There's a lot more shinies in these decks than there were previously, but quite frankly, that doesn't really bother me much. By the way, this is a deck, not like covering every card. I did that with Neo Nectar already, and I think you get the gist of it. This is rather a deck I play with Gear Chronicle, which means I still have all the decks. All of them. The 10k attacker. This one is a bit more useful than in Neo Nectar or Royal Paladins because, well, your generation striding guaranteed, and you sort of have to, otherwise the deck's not going to work. So, you know, he's pretty great. He's a good starting ride. He's a good booster. He's a good attacker in this deck. There are other things that are coming in later that will be better than him, but for now, he will suffice. For 8Ks, this is a defensive ride grade 1, but at the same time keeping the booster because I don't like 15k columns in my Gear Chronicle. The deck relies on stride a bit much, and so if they do something to nullify stride, like say a perfect shield, or you know, you just don't have the cards for it, you do need your columns to make up for that. 2 10k boosters, because of the ace of the deck is a glory. Yeah, it's a glory, I think. You know, the 10k boost is nice, turning into a 26k, which is numbers. 4 perfect shields. The art is kind of meh, but it's a perfect shield, and quite frankly, it's more important when you're facing Kagero to block, like docks, than it is to unflip a damage, which is what the special counter perfect shields do, but they perfect shields. But they can only block the Vanguard. Not Vanguard to Vanguard, but you can only block your for your Vanguard rather. Which has its good points, bad points, but it's honestly it's like docks. You block docks every single time because what they do is they search out for a Dragonic Overlord at the end. They unless they have a docks, you know, because both their abilities require Persona Blasts. They need an on-hit Persona Blast and an on-not-hit Persona Blast, a la Maelstrom Reverse, which isn't just going to happen normally. Partly because, you know, it's okay. It might happen. It might happen, but the odds are against it. If they're a lucky SOB, it'll happen. But I see a lot of docks players play it 3 docks, 3 the ends, or like 4 the ends, and then 2 the greats, which is a battle of attrition if there ever was one. And remember, in a deck with docks, it'll be harder for them to stride because they have to choose between do I want a Persona Blast or do I want to stride? The answer is you want to stride. But when you run out of strides, or you know, it's time to start ending people with your actual Vanguard's abilities, it's better to have something in your hand, either Dragonic Overlord or docks. Dragonic Overlord DX. 10k defensive ride. Yeah. I mean, it's better than the 10k intercept with which is 10k interceptor, which is a annoying SOB, but it doesn't give me columns, so I'm not playing him. 12k attacker. You might say, Ben, you can run the 6k 11k defense card with this guy, but I didn't really get him out as many times as I wanted. It was really frustrating, and quite frankly, the G-break thing doesn't really work early game. I'd run other things than him. 12k attacker based on archetype can work when you don't have the when you have the archetype but not a grade 3. This guy can only work when you have a grade 3 and you have Stridden. There we go. This is actually a really good card. Steam Fighter Amber. It is a dude. Should have been a girl. No. Other people get like that, but I don't give a shit. The art's fantastic. It's shiny, shiny. G-Break 1, Counterblast 1. When this unit attacks the Vanguard, when it's boosted, choose an opponent's grade 2 or less rear guards, and the opponent puts it at the bottom of his deck. Here's the thing, if they're burning through their deck, you don't want to do this. You want them to deck out. Like if you're facing Genesis, you know, sure, it's a minus, but they can recover from it. You want them to deck out first, which is hilarious. But really, he's a great card. Well worth the shiny. No real weaknesses. 4 of in every deck. If you don't run 4 of, I mean, you can, but he's too good not to. There we go. This one is Steve Knight Ubata Tutu. G-Break 1 when this unit attacks a Vanguard, plus 6k until end of battle. Counterblast 2 when it's put on Vanguard Circle, pay the cost. Choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or less. Rear guard, put it in the bottom of the deck. That's overcosted. Counterblast 2 for a -1 is too much cost. And he has to be put on the Vanguard as well. So, in other words, he's useless on the rear guard circle, more or less, except as an attacker. I could run the 11k Poos defensive. I don't want to. He's useless as an attack by itself because 10k to 11k doesn't work. The 6k only applies when he's on Vanguard Circle. The second ability only applies when he's on Vanguard Circle. And I'm going to replace the hell out of him as soon as I get the cards. I am looking for Gear Master or whatever the name is. Gear Dragon. Double rare, excuse me. The ace of the deck, probably the best of the 3 cards that are aces of the deck, is Chrono Jet Dragon. GB2, when this unit attacks a Vanguard until end of battle, this unit gets plus 5k and your opponent cannot call grade 1 or so from hand. Grade 1 or greater units from hand to Guardian Circle. They can intercept, of course, and if they have 10k interceptors, I guess it runs your day, but that's not going to happen. 16k, maybe 26k at most, is really great. Hits numbers, ruins faces, and the fact that they can't perfect signed. The fact that they can't perfect shield is a really, nice thing. The stride ability is pretty great. During your turn when you stride, counterblast 1, choose an opponent's rear guard, put it at the bottom of the deck. That's more like it. Counterblast 1. A Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1 would also have been acceptable, guy, but you failed. Really great card. He does hold his own against a lot of the stuff that's out there nowadays, but he's only the beginning. There's some stuff. He looks like Chrono too. Look at that hair. Chrono still has stupid hair. I'd hope I'd get used to it. He's still a great card. He does last in the Japanese meta and does show up in the late era decks along with the Legion and a few others. But he isn't really needed as much as they should be. He is needed. He isn't really as boomy compared to some of the other flashy, AC. Words, why are you failing me? Flashy. I'm going to use flashy. He isn't really as flashy as it could be. And it doesn't hurt. This guy doesn't hurt Gear Chronicles. The signed really helps. The cards that are coming out will really help. But I think this guy really comes to shine when he's when GBO1 comes out. That's what I'll say. Once he has units that are actually working for him, he will start to, do more, be more, cover the things that needs to be covered with the whole deck. Because here's the thing, this guy is great and he stands alone. His deck works with the archetype for Gear Chronicle, but it doesn't really do what needs to be done for Gear Chronicle as a clan in its own right. Because here's the thing, you can build Kagero clans, Narukami clans, and everything in it could be about Narukami and Kagero, like my decks are. I don't really run generics except for like a 10k defense card because I don't know what else to put in there. This deck is all generic cards except for like this guy. Or overcosted things like this guy. So I'm looking forward to, really working on this deck. Last little bit here is the Stride. This card is the trollsiest card that exists in all of Vanguard. Certainly the most trollsy Stride. Counterblast 4. When this unit attacks hits the Vanguard, you may reveal 4 cards from the deck. If they are 0, 1, 2, and 3, or 0, 1, 2, 4, if you've got a grade 4 in there, like Novel Vague for some reason. Different grades, 4 different grades. You may pay the cost. Counterblast 4. You get an additional turn. If you had revealed cards, shuffle the deck. He works for free. You look at the top 4, and then maybe you get an additional turn. But a lot of people screw themselves over. They plan for this guy to work. He will never work. Never, never, never. So instead, use your counterblasts, and then use him like you should, as a Stride. Because strides. If you happen to get 4 damage when you stride, don't use this guy's ability. Use it after you attack with the Vanguard. Because that's hilarious. Because they're like, oh boy, resource management going on here. I can't mess with him like I usually would. Really great card. I'm still going to run him when I get my Ragged Clocks. So let's talk about my Royal Paladins. Ezel and Alfred, no. Someday you'll see him. But this is a deck made out of the trial decks alone, in the similar vein to Gear Chronicle. However, this is not the deck I am running for Royals right now, full disclosure. I am running Sanctuary of Light comboed with Alfred and Ezer, and it's actually working really well. I use the Sanctuary of Lights to pay for Stride, and Alfred Ezers to fill out my field. But that's a conversation for another video. Oh, there we go. Oh no. I got the dropsy. Also, the fact that I built the deck around Legion is kind of a killer, because Altamile does not work with Sanctuary of Light. He doesn't work with many people, really, that isn't about giving power or summoning things. I might try Garmor sometime, but I don't know if Snowball and whatnot would work with Altamile late game, because Altamile is a late game card, more than Chronojet or Ramunculus. Though Ramunculus can be argued is a late game card. It's just, I don't feel it's as late as Altamile. G-Break 2 is late. G-Break 1 is medium, in my reckoning. Starter is actually pretty decent. Counterblast 1 putting the Soul Summon out of grade 2. Yeah, you want to summon out like this guy. Nope. Well, maybe a 12k attacker, or this guy, which is the same thing as Steam Knight Amber or Gallo or whatever, but Royal Paladin style, which means a grade 2. Which is strange, because I felt that, you could summon a grade 2, a grade 1 or 2, but, that's not how they do it. Great art. He is actually your go-to Royal Paladin starter for now. A lot of people are like, why don't they get a grade 3 searcher? Well, you don't need a grade 3 searcher. If you use a grade 3 searcher, you are being like the lowest brow person here. But it works so good. But there's other things you can use, like this guy, or, a ride chain, or anything else but the generic card. I remember when there was a promo Red Pulse Draco Kid, even though it was coming out in set 11, it was like a $10 card for a little while. It was like, what are you guys doing with your money? I regret not selling mine. Oh wait, I did. This draw trigger is adorable. Pixie Assault Captain. If there wasn't Margles running around for soul charges in my deck, I'd run you so much. 4 crits. It's a lion. 4 stands. There's shiny Margles in the deck. I don't really feel like pulling it out. 4 heals. Not as good as Elaine. I mean, it's a Pegasus, and I am all about those ponies. Or I was. I'm more about horses now, just sort of roaming through the breeze, all majestic and shit. But no, it's a little bit like the art is not of quality, even though it's supposed to look good. It's not really as great as say Pixie Assault Captain. She's like, attack, and it's like, oh, and then she thrives down your throat and eats your heart or something. I don't know. It's horrifying. It's what happens. No survivors. Grade 1s. I don't have them organized like I want them to be. Nearly done, guys. 10k attacker. This is a deck only made through the trial decks. So this guy, the problem with this deck is that it only summons grade 2s, but here's the thing, he's great as a booster, emergency attacker, but only for emergency situations. If I could have my way, I would run... Hold on. Toy Poogle, by the way, works with strides. Toy Poogle. No, not this guy. Sorry, he's a stride unit. There's somebody else in here, I think. No, there isn't. Huh. I could have sworn I had someone else in here. Well, point is that there's a guy like Sword of Hope Richard, or Landimus, or hell, Snoggles. Snoggles would work too, but the problem with Snoggles is that there's no way to summon him except with Garmors, which, by the way, could work with this guy. This guy. I didn't do that on purpose. That's the worst part. Because you summon out a Garmor, discard a card, summon out a Snoggle, which means more power. But at the same time, that's sort of not a very good deck. Sorry, guys. I want to try it out, and I probably will once I get tired of my Alfred Ezel Easer. But for now, this is what it is. But there's a lot of other things. I think Sword of Truth Richard might work best here. 2 10k boosters. Again, this is a deck made just out of the trial decks. You don't really need a 10k booster in Royal Paladins, honestly. There's too many other good things. Best good AK art. It's really great. I like the sort of Arabian feel. They got the best. They got the baggy pants. And I'm all about baggy pants, baby. No, I'm not. They're going for a more futuristic and foreign outlook from the European Night styles. Even though the European Night styles are still there, and there's some very European styled like costumes, like with Rainbow Guardian, definitely looks Slavic or lower Germanic to me. I know it's like, man, how do you know? Mercenary King, how do you know about those things? Because I read as a child. You know, but that's what it strikes me of. It strikes me of, like, with the hat especially. You know, as from these cultures. You know, this is definitely an Arabian-styled knight. Oh my goodness. Lunar Crescent Knight Fellax. Lunar Crescent Knight. Oh god. He's an Arabian Knight. I'm more excited about this than I should be, but he's got fantastic art. There's a pun in his name that translated both from Japanese to English. Yes. Actually, that's like the problem with like Toriko and stuff. Perfect Shield, not as fantastic art. Really good art, but not as great as it could be. With like Toriko, because there's a whole bunch of puns about food that make sense in the Japanese. but they don't really translate over well to English because we call potatoes potatoes or taters or hash or something like that. But you can't call something the potato monster because it doesn't sound good in English. I mean, it sounds like a very sad Sesame Street character. 10k attacker. Defensive attacker. No, I'm not using a AK and 10k interceptor. 12k attacker. Pretty good card in this deck because he can be summoned out by this guy, Stood. That's the important bit. He doesn't call to open rearguard circle. He calls to rearguard circle. In other words, you could attack, boop, and then attack boosted, and have another attack there. And let's see here. And by the way, G break 2, during your turn, all the units in the front row get plus 5k. Not as good as Ramunculus, but it only requires a front row. So the 10k attacker makes more sense. This guy is a really great card. Alfred Easer doesn't really use him as much, but I am going to be experimenting him later. Partly because of how I treat what's his name, Sanctuary of Light cards, but you know, that's for later. Right now I'm pretty happy with the deck, but the next deck I run that is Royals, I will be using him. Only problem is that he summons out a grade 2, which isn't much of a problem, but it is enough of something to, you know, force you to think and not just like summon what you need. Royal Paladins like could be so good, so powerful, but they're kept back by restrictions like that. This summons a grade 2 or greater card, Counterblast 2. You want to summon a grade 3, by the way, just to thin out the decks of non-defensive cards. No, summoning a grade 2 would be a defensive card, 5k2 rearguard circle, but depends on how you do it. Also, G break 1. Again, this is a generic card. I think it's not as overcosted as the Gear Chronicle guy, but you know, he's a little bit much. He's only good on the Vanguard circle, etc. Last little bit here, except for the Stride, we have here Ultimile. I don't know why I say Ultimile, but he's always Ultimile to me because it's easier to say. Shining's on top. Again, with the sort of cyberpunky look to him. Honestly, they've devolved from European styles for so long, and they've gone sort of neo-futuristic knights, which I love. I'm just saying it's not as, it's more stylistic in the Royal Paladin style, but it's less visually in my head like Alfred is, or Garmor, or Garmor Royal, or there's somebody else. There's got to be someone else. Or Ashley. Both reverse and normal thing. And Sanctuary of Light, honestly. You know, it's this guy is the least visually interesting of all of them, but he's still got probably one of the strongest abilities. Soul Saver Dragon. There we go. His Stride, G break 2, during your turn, all your units in front row get plus 5k. 17k by himself. So it turns into a 24k with the 7k booster behind it. He also gets plus 5k to himself, so he's a 23k attacker for the Vanguard circle. Good numbers. During your turn, when the G unit strides, you may pay the cost, Counterblast 1. Take 2 cards from your hand, call them to R, choose 2 units from the field. You don't have to call the same units you called, and give them plus 5k. So you can give them a call them plus 5k, give 2 boosters plus 5k. But this is only when Stride, and I don't really care for it as much as I do other things, because it's -2 from hand and sure and Counterblast 1, and sure you get plus 10k to something to call them, or what, 2 boosters, whatever. It's just not as exciting as -1 to your opponent, or the summon something else and give it plus 2k. But he's good. He's good enough, and that's really important for a lot of these things. His ability I've talked about, plus front row to plus 5k. G break 2. Let's talk about the Stride unit, and then we will be finished. The Stride unit is actually pretty decent. Shrouded Divine Knight Galblade. He's much more European with that cyber look. I love it. Got that cape action. I really dig him. Art-wise, stride-wise, he's pretty good. When this unit attack hits a Vanguard, search your deck for a grade 2 or greater rearguard and call to rearguard circle shuffle deck. Again, with the grade 2s, but again, like I said, these things can be more attackers. And plus, the triplet drive is nice. I'm not really complaining against him. I'm just saying that he could be a bit better, and the guys that are coming out in GBO1 are, I believe, there are things that summon and kill and other things like that. Yeah. These are the 3 trial decks, as well as things about them. The Neo Nectar deck I'm unsatisfied with, to create a deck just with that involved. Not enough things to really work with it and work with the winning image that Neo Nectar has. Gear Chronicle works best, but is unfulfilled. Royal Paladins works pretty great, but I think there could be other cards in the sets that could work on it. So really, it's Neo Nectar kind of bad by itself. Royal Paladins can work by itself, but can really shine when you get like a Soul Saber or something backing it up, you know, or something else that gives power, like a Sanctuary of Light, the Unlocker that came out as a promo in set 14, and then you know, cards like that, Alfred even, because the counterblasts are kind of light in this deck. And then finally a Strides unit, and finally Gear Chronicle, which is its own deck, but as soon as the new stuff comes out, it's going to be so much more. Alright, I want to thank you for watching the beginning of the new season of State of Play. Again, comment and subscribe. To the guy who's asking for my Grand Blue deck, by the time I will get that to you, I am so sorry for taking so long. You should have gotten it by the time this is post. Oh, future. Alright guys, this has been Wheeler the Mercenary King. Have a wonderful rest of your nights.